The argument is we haven't been wrong in predicting the outcome of every progressive change from marriage to race, etc. The one that seems to have overwhelmed women is pedophilia. They have the left's basic structure, which we know now, is to undermine demand for responsibility in the form of self-regulation.
It's because they're framing sexualization, like being sexual as a being as maturity. That's a frame they're selling to children, but entering into sexual relations denotes you an adult.
It's a bypassing of development.
It's a maturity. We have a maturity crisis. We do not have adults here. They do not exist.
I didn't make that connection. I just saw it as manipulation and predation. But what you're saying is they can bypass.
It's behavioral maladaptation.
Maladaptation, so they can bypass responsibility at it.
And then they wield it early in a coercive fashion against men who are not capable of competing in that environment.
So is this just the production of emotional satisfaction? It's infantilism.
Sure.
I usually mean that intellectually, but you mean psychologically and emotionally.
Yeah, developmentally, all the ways. Yeah.
I mean, when I say that it's child abuse to do what they're doing to children, that they are abusing children. That's what I mean.
Yeah, the problem is that you abuse enough children, it abuses society.
Of course. Well, they're abusing each other. That's the thing. And then they're going to need the help, and the government super systems are going to offer the help. And they don't see that that is the cycle that they're inside of.
So the pathway is that the cognitively feminine is reducible to a failure of maturity that we tolerate. The question is, why do we tolerate it from women? Because when we tolerate it from them and we don't institutionally defend against it, we get what we see, which is the continuous advancement of equality through infantilization. In other words, the common denominator is poverty. The common denominator is infantilization.
Yeah, they can't make us all women, so they're making us all children.
They're making us all children.
They are trying to make us all women, so
they are. It's just they're going to fail, and they're going to try to make us all children. We will fall for that. We are falling for that. We play video games more than we do real life. We don't produce innocence anymore. Innocence has to come along with immaturity, and if you don't have those, like in combination, you are in trouble.
Innocence
and immaturity have to come together. They come together. You can't have immaturity without innocence. It's a truth claim that you're innocent from doing harm, like acting the way that you act as a child. You have a claim of innocence against this place because you are immature and unable to steward yourself forward in a fashion that's civilized. That's why you have adults that literally have to view you as property. We have to steward people out of this frame. It's a real frame, and you inhabit it as a child.
The more adult, the more trust is required. The more infantile, the least trust is required. The more trust that's required, the more predictability is required. The more predictive required is the more knowledge is required. The more knowledge is required, the more systematizing is required. So literally, their immaturity leaves them in a state of empathizing, which they're lionizing. They're lionizing, empathizing, which is it's a pre-rational way of looking at the world, absent the capacity to systematize.
Let me deliver everyone to the present then. If you learn to systematize against the future that's coming, you're going to prefer empathizing.
I can connect this to Abrahamism. Instead of letting you make moral judgments independently, you just follow a set of commands so that you don't have to think.
So this is mothering, right? The mother is trying to recite a bunch of commands to relieve herself the responsibility of continuous.
It's mothering with a bend to control the child in the future, as opposed to
creating independence
as an agent,
right. Which is not actual mothering.
Analyzing,
which isn't, again, it isn't mothering. It's not even part of the panoply. Like, you can teach your child that its emotions aren't there to fight them, but inform them, and then how to articulate that information. And we don't do that with children, and they don't do that in the schools.
So they're saying you need to bring out your intrinsic nature, free of oppression. is just another positive assertion of the negative intuition to be free of the burden from self and other regulation. So I'm always saying the female mind is evading responsibility for the private and common, leaving everything to self-satisfaction. Right? They're trying to, it's basically disorder. And so in other words, the negative female aspect is
I
that.
would say that that is the mind of a child. I think
Right.
That is the
Yeah,
mind.
and I disagree that that's,
it's the mind of a child as well.
Yeah.
But it would make that differentiation.
Luke,
that's the thing, we have not seen a fully developed female in generations, so we don't know
yeah,
what the
I'm
female mind
sorry.
is doing. Undeveloped, childish, feminine mind, but it's not a matter of it being female, it's a matter of it being childish.
Was the norm, always has been. We didn't have different expectations from women. It was the norm that they followed commands from their fathers and their husbands.
Yes, that's true.
The general process of infantilization is sex independent. That's the face of the coin, the positiva. The negativa is that we demonstrate infantilization differently by sex. And so the empathizing, systematizing, empathizing, manipulating, inconsistency versus systematizing, force systematizing.
Dads withdraw.
You just give up, right? Because it's just
Withdraw. Well, the courts force dads out of people's lives, and so do mothers now. I'm not trying to make it, I'm not trying to demonize dads, but like what we do is not infantilize. We withdraw. We're not there.
yes.
Stake as a father, as a parent.
We're trying to restore every man a sheriff, which is the ancient, our prehistoric incentive to push responsibility as far down so we can have as many peers as possible to compensate for our small numbers.
And I'm trying to get across the point to people that families is the optimal condition. We don't have enough children. If you have enough children, you realize you got to make some of them mature to raise the next few.
And think about all the things we use that every man phrase for, right? Every man a sheriff, every man a judge, every man a rifleman, every man a decider, every man a statesman. We can clump all those together by saying every man a father, capture all of those traits. But the point is we haven't framed that same set of criteria for the mother. We've done so for the father.
I see. But then saying that there is a good is a violation of my selfishness. That is therefore oppression. Adulting is oppression. I want to stay a child, an irresponsible, emotionally whimsical, self-gratifying child.